The Weird Story of Elmer McCurdy. When a man dies, he expects to be buried next to his loved ones in celebration of his life. What he does not expect, however, is to be paraded around as a mummified dead man. Elmer McCurdy was this man, and he was destined to make a name for himself. A criminal while he was with the living, but amongst the dead, he became a famous carnival attraction.
Step right up for the greatest show in town. Step right up, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls.
Elmer started his life off with the living in 1880. Born to a 17-year-old girl named Sadie. He was raised by his aunt and uncle, though, because Sadie didn't know who his father was. He was, by all accounts, a typical teenager until he found out that his aunt was not his mother.
I hate you!
This created a huge hole in his heart, which pushed him towards alcohol. His best friend, Whiskey, had a hold of him real tight and never left his side. He did have success as a plumber for a while, but his continued drunkenness and the downturn of the economy would cause a lack of employment. This just further caused more inner demons and a conflict within his soul. He wandered from state to state, plumbing and mining, but just wasn't getting anywhere, especially with the whiskey following him around.
Pass the whiskey.
In 1907, he decided to join the United States Army and was assigned to Fort Leavenworth. He was only in there for 3 years and was dishonorably discharged in 1910 after learning how to use nitroglycerin for demolitions. This skill, he thought, would prove to be useful in his upcoming criminal ways. His first robbery was a train called the Iron Mountain Missouri Pacific, which contained only $4,000. Poor McCurdy used too much of the nitroglycerin on the safe, and it destroyed most of the money, which included silver coins that had melted into the frame from the explosion. Next, he would knock off a bank called the Citizens Bank in Chattanooga, Kansas, but again wasn't quite too successful because the nitroglycerin wouldn't ignite. His final attempt of criminality was on October 4th, 1911, near Okessa, Oklahoma. Elmer wanted to take down the Katy train because it had $400,000 in cash. Well, he fumbled his way through this one because it turned out to be the wrong train, which was full of passengers. He robbed the passengers, and all he got was a measly $46, a watch, a gun, and some jugs of whiskey. By this time, Elmer was sick with tuberculosis and pneumonia. So he constantly drank himself into a stupor. He took off to a friend's house after this last botched crime, and of course, he drank all night. He then passed out in a hay shed. When he woke in the morning, 3 sheriffs had tracked him down with a bloodhound. This is a short version of the encounter they gave in the Daily Examiner on October 7th, 1911.
It began just about 7 o'clock. We were standing around waiting for him to come out when he fired his first shot at me. It missed. He kept shooting at all of us for about an hour. We fired back when we could. We don't know who killed him.
He was subsequently shot in the chest and killed immediately. Now you would think this would be the end of his story, but you would be mistaken. His dead body made its way to the undertaker, where it was embalmed and preserved. There, it waited for the next of kin to arrive. That never happened. This is where he became known as the bandit who wouldn't give up, because Johnson's funeral home decided to prop him up on display and make a little bit of side money. For 5 years, this funeral director let people pay to see McCurdy in all his bandit glory by putting a nickel in his mouth. Word of this got around, and the owners of the Great Patterson Carnival shows lied and said they were McCurdy's brothers so that they could get his body.
That was easy.
Let's just say these men were not ace-high kind of fellas. His corpse was then showcased as the outlaw who would never be captured alive. In 1922, a man named Louis Sani acquired McCurdy and jumped at the chance to put him in his traveling shows like Museum of Crime and the Trans-American Foot Race. By 1938, Elmer would become mummified and was advertised in the lobby of a theater as a dead dope fiend to push a film called Narcotics about drugs.
Don't use drugs.
In 1976, Elmer ended up at the Pike, an amusement park in Long Beach, California. He was hung up in a funhouse ride called Laugh in the Dark. In the same year, the $6 Million Man TV show decided to shoot an episode at the Pike called Carnival of Spies. By this time, many people thought he was just a wax figure. It had been covered with phosphorus paint and was completely hardened. As one prop man found out, though, he was definitely real. When he moved the so-called mannequin, the arm broke off, exposing bone and muscle tissue. All hell broke loose. The police came and collected this petrified figure and took it straight to the coroner's office. After the autopsy, you'll never guess what they pulled out of his mouth. A penny from 1924 and ticket stubs to the Pike amusement park. Elmer McCurdy could now be properly buried. On April 22, 1977, 300 people showed up to a funeral in Guthrie, Oklahoma. He could finally rest, and to make sure he never went anywhere again, they put 2 feet of concrete over his casket. Hey, thanks for watching. Be weird and hit that like button. Never be bored. Hit subscribe.